and welcome to another episode of the Soul Centered CEO Show. I'm so excited to be back with you all this week and to be joined by my new and favorite person, Jarrod Haning. Welcome, Jarrod, to the show.
Hello, hello. Glad to be here.
Hello. I do want to share a little bit about your background because, as I was telling you before we started, your bio is probably one of the most fun that I've ever seen. So I'm going to consolidate a little bit of it. But what I want everyone to know is that Jarrod is an award-winning speaker, has been featured on ABC Nightline. He's spoken on stages all across the country, has clients all across the world, has delivered 4 TED Talks, not 1, not 2, but 4. You talk specifically around mindset performance. You've been the featured speaker of the week by TED. You specialize in a Nobel Nominated process that teaches you how to think at a higher level, which allows you to access different parts of your brain on demand, which is fantastic. We're definitely going to dive into that. What I find very fascinating also about you, Jarrod, is that your background is actually as a classically trained musician. And that kind of came up in the conversation at the event we were at this past weekend. I find that so fascinating. And let's see, the specific thing that you work with is a very magical looking tool called a mind scan. And we're going to dive into that conversation today as well. So welcome, Jarrod. I'm so happy to know you and now be able to spend this time with you this morning.
Yes. Glad to be here. We've got some exciting things coming up to talk about.
I know, it's like a whole plethora. Okay, so first of all, let's dive in. I'm fascinated with people that have these major transitions and shifts, right? From kind of where they started and where they are. Obviously for you, coming up as a musician, a classically trained musician, and now coming into mindset and performance work, how did you make that leap? Like, share with us a little bit maybe about your story of how you got from where you were to where you are right now.
I was in music full-time for about 20 years. What some people don't know about music, though, is that when you're engaged in making music, whether you're singing in the car, driving down the road, or clapping your hands at a concert, when you're like co-creating, when you're co-participating there, you're using more different places in your brain than any other activity. This is a sharp contrast with, say, athletic performance, where the better your body is performing athletically, the more in the zone you are, so to speak, the less of your brain you're using. This is because the brain is a hungry thing. It takes a lot of resources to keep it going. And so in an athletic environment, that glucose needs to be going to the muscles. So the brain kind of quiets down and enters sort of a meditative space. But music is the opposite. When you're involved in co-creating music, it's this panoply of color. It's a fireworks show. So at the time that I was full-time in music, I was also giving a set of talks called The Musical Secrets, where I would teach entrepreneurs how to access different parts of their brain on demand, different exercises, different ways to think from, different vantage points, because that opens up new innovation. It opens up creativity and confidence and productivity. So that's what I was doing at the time. And then music kind of ran its course, meaning after 20 years, I wanted to do something else with my life.
Yeah.
And so for the past 10 years, I've been full-time in the mindset space.
Oh, I love it. And now specifically you work with entrepreneurs to help them, like you said, open up different parts of their brain. You use a very specific technique and tool that allows you to kind of show people where kind of their gaps are, perceived gaps, what they're not accessing. And then that's part of I'm assuming your coaching and your training is based on how then once they have their assessment done, what are the ways that they can then fully maximize and really make a bigger impact with all of the work that they're doing based on what you find their gaps to be. Is that correct?
A lot of it starts with the mind scan.
Okay.
It does. The way it maps out your thinking patterns is unlike any other tool out there. But because that shows like the blind spots that have been tripping you up, why you keep hitting the same obstacles, even though you're doing the best you can with what you have to work with.
Right.
But it shows those blind spots, those little tangles, if you will, in your thinking patterns, breakthroughs that are waiting for you. strengths that you might not have recognized or acknowledged, strengths that you could be leveraging in different ways,
Oh, I love this.
to access those breakthroughs faster. And because it's mapped out, it's kind of effectively your personal breakthrough map.
Oh, wow.
And so for some people are, well, they're fat and happy. They take the mind scan and they say, all right, I'm good, thanks, you know.
Yeah. Cool.
Other people, they're driven and they feel called to something bigger, and they are tired of whatever, something holding them back or not having the clarity they need or whatever they want. So they take this, and I mean, 30% of them are in tears. They find it so emotionally meaningful. And so at the end of that, they're like, I've never had a clearer path to what life is calling me to. How do I learn how to think like this? How do I start thinking like this naturally on my own? And
Mhm.
then it's at that point, it's like, well, then maybe we should get you over to the mindset gym,
Right.
because you can't think your way out of it. You have to experience your way out of it. That's how the brain makes new thoughts. It's from experience, not from thinking. So in the mindset gym, by doing mindset push-ups, it gives your brain that resistance, that scaffolding that it needs in order to make new connections.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I know that you have kind of maybe an example handy. Do you want to
Oh,
maybe
yep. We'll hold
share
this
some of
up.
that?
So
Yeah.
this is a kind of a picture of the mind scan. You can sort of see what it looks like in the way it maps out
Yep.
your thinking patterns. The colors aren't significant. It just helps our eyes to recognize that the circles on the graph are different sizes. I'll go ahead and hold that up again, and you
Yep.
can see that the circles are different sizes, big ones, little ones, and that means different things. As we go through your breakthrough map, you'll be able to see. Um,
Right.
but yeah, it's very rewarding.
Oh, I can't wait for my session. I'm so excited to take it and get your
Yeah,
feedback.
coming up 2 weeks.
2 weeks, I'm on it. And then, like you said, there's specific exercises that you can do to help strengthen, I guess, or open up those
Mhm.
areas that may be a little bit stuck, like you said, a little tangly, a little sticky. And then, what would you suggest, or what have you seen in terms of like the before and after, right? So I'm sure you've had gazillions of clients that have gone through this, and what would you say would be one of the biggest breakthroughs that you've seen with your clients, and what comes out on the other side once they have this
Well,
information?
let's talk about a couple that are, I guess, fairly meaningful. Had a lady who was working at a nonprofit, so she's doing her 40 hours there, and then she would come home and she's making kind of custom cookies on nights and weekends. But I say custom cookies. I mean, these were works of art. They should be in a museum. They were amazing. Her craftsmanship and creativity is just incredible. Of course, they taste great too. But so she was selling so many of these that she would leave her regular job and then she would work 50 to 60 hours doing these cookies nights and weekends. And she's just like working herself to the bone, staying up to 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning and all kinds of crazy stuff. And this is going on. And well, she takes the mind scan and sees something about the way she was solving that problem, the way she was solving the productivity problem, or the maintaining quality problem, or the maintaining customer satisfaction problem. She just saw how her brain was thinking through that, if you will. And so with this new information, what she ended up doing is putting just a couple things in place that she hadn't considered. You're only one thought away from your next breakthrough.
Right.
And that took her to triple her cookie income in the next year, working half as many hours. So this is like a six-fold increase,
Right.
which gave her more than enough revenue than she would have needed to leave her full-time job if she wanted to. I mean, thankfully for her, the full-time job was emotionally fulfilling.
Right.
But now she had more than enough income that she could retire at any time from the
Sure.
cookie business, and she wasn't working herself to the bone. Tripled
Right.
her income, cut her labor in half in order
Right.
to make that happen.
Wow.
Had a lady who very, very successful entrepreneur. She's doing multiple six figures. She's coaching authors, and at home she's got four little kids. They are all 8 years old and younger.
Okay.
And so what would happen is she would leave her regular work, she would come home, And now she's got to do home stuff. So she's finding herself like being busy and shopping and cleaning and cooking and all the normal home stuff that's necessary for
Right.
homes to run. And it's not working. I don't want to be doing this. I want to be spending time with my kids. That's
Right.
where I really want to be. And so, of course, she does all the stuff you would think to do.
Yeah.
And to be clear, like her husband's a great guy. He's a stand-up guy. And she's, asking for help and trying to communicate what it's like and what's not working. And she's doing all the stuff that, to do, and you know how well that works.
Right.
So, but again, you can't think of what you can't think of.
Right.
And you're only one thought away from your next breakthrough. So what the mind scan does is it gets your way of thinking out on paper so that you can, well, effectively read the label that's on the bottle. You can't read the label on the inside. You got to
Right.
get out of the jar, right, to read the label. So
Mhm.
what it showed was the way her brain was making sense of communicating these kinds of matters to her spouse.
Okay.
So with this new insight, she was able to change the order of her sentence. That was it. She wasn't adding magical new words. She wasn't taking out information. She was just putting the information in a different order. That was it.
Wow.
Goes back to her husband with the same thing she's been trying to tell him for the past 8 years.
Yeah.
And he hears her because her brain finally understood how brains process information.
Mm.
So he hears her. And in that 10-minute conversation, she printed 10 free hours a week at home, free hours to be
Wow.
present with her kids and not wrapped up doing shopping, cleaning, cooking, household
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
So she could actually be present with her kids. This was an incredible lifestyle change for her. But on a roll, if you will, she
Yeah.
takes this new understanding that
Yeah.
you're only one thought away, right? So she takes this back to her regular work. Even though it was her company, she had still managed to kind of work herself into a corner there too.
Right.
So she has this same conversation with her staff that she's been trying to have all this time, only now her brain understood the value that was in play and the way she was processing it and why that wasn't working in other people's brains.
Yeah.
And in that conversation, she prints 30 free hours in her own company
Yeah.
to no longer be in the weeds doing the work, but to be out of operations so that she can go back to creatively designing and mapping the trajectory for where her business is going next. Amazing opportunity there. Had a lady who was, ironically, this was a different author coach. I don't know why I ended up with two of these back to back in my stories, but um, same situation with her spouse, doing all that to do, and you know how well that stuff works, and takes the mind scan. Her brain sees something that it hadn't seen before about the way it was communicating and processing these things. Takes that conversation to her spouse. He hears her in a way that he's never heard before. But the problem was, like, she kept doing it. She kept communicating in this new way that she'd never considered. And like, her spouse wanted to send me a thank you card because
My
it
goodness.
took conversations that to his brain were showing up as like, ah, you know, too much information or noise. And it showed up now as an opportunity, as possibility, as exciting, as interesting. Just because she changed the order that she was presenting the information to him. She didn't change what she was saying. She didn't change her tone of voice. She didn't change how she was saying it, just simply reordering the packets of information, how they were structured in the sentence. And the mind scan gave her access to having that thought that she just simply hadn't considered before.
Oh my gosh. I love this so much because it feels it's not it's not simple, but it's easy, right? It's like, oh, it's not rocket science, but it's like it's just the knowing. And as soon as you have that knowing, and then you're willing to make those shifts, it's exponential what the outcome can be, right? Like it's just so
Mhm.
cool and powerful. Even just shifting a few sentences around, like that's an amazing breakthrough. I love how you say that you're only one thought away. You're only one thought away from your next breakthrough. I love that concept because so many of us, we think it has to be some big, huge, like massive transformation. It could be just, no, it's just a micro shift in the way you're communicating. And I love that so much. I love it. Okay, so people are probably going to want to do this now, right? And find out more about where they can get information on how to do a mind scan. Do you want to share maybe a little bit about where they can find you, how they can follow you and connect with you?
Come by mindsetperformance.co. You can learn more about the mind scan. You can decide for yourself if you think it's a good fit for what life is calling you to, and untangling some of the hurdles along the way. Just check it out for yourself. Decide for yourself. If you want to look into more of like what the mindset push-ups are like, or some of the teaching and why it works, you can follow me on my podcast, mindsetperformance.co, as well. Also linked on the website. If you want to take a sneak peek at the book that's coming out, Thinking Patterns of Success, where we actually feature some of the thinking patterns of 7 and 8 figure business owners, you can download kind of a executive summary and a couple exercises there as well.
Oh, I love it so much. I'm so excited for your book. When is it coming out?
Well, we're doing the final edits right now. Hope to have a physical copy in my hands in September.
Wonderful. That's a huge accomplishment. Huge accomplishment. I would love for all of the members of our CEO collective to have access to at least the executive summary, and I certainly want to share the book details with them as well. So, for us in the collective, it's really about expanding our businesses and our revenues. We can make more and give more. So any tools and tricks and things that we could do to really step into that next level is definitely something that we're all interested in. So I love the work that you're doing. I love your passion for it, your enthusiasm around it. I always think it's beautiful when we can find the thing that we're brilliant at and lights us up at the same time. That to me is the most fulfilling work that we can do. So I love that you've been able to take all of your gifts and talents and interests and bring them in together. Hi, Bax. You want to say hi to Jarrod? Hello. He likes to be on the video. We can bring that all together and create something really powerful and meaningful as a way to help others create their highest level of success as well. So thank you so much. Is there any other quick last minute like tip or trick that you'd like to share before we close out today, Jarrod?
As far as tips or tricks, what I would offer is the concept. Your main problem is that you don't have a bigger problem. And I know on the surface that sounds like incredibly like harsh and insensitive. So let me, I guess, unpack a little bit what I mean by that. Let's say that you're frustrated with your relationship with your teenage kid. So that's your problem. Problem is you're frustrated with your relationship with your teenage kid. And as that, you're going to be having conversations with your friends about it, and you're going to be brainstorming solutions about it. And with all that, it kind of includes a certain level of complaint, right? A certain level of thinking. But now imagine that instead of your teenage kid being your problem, imagine that you have voluntarily chosen to take on a much bigger problem. Let's say that you have chosen to take on solving the problem for every parent that has a teenage kid and is dealing with the same problem. Now you're playing a much bigger game. How can I make this easier for them? So you go on Facebook and you announce that you are writing the book on solving this type of problem with your teenager, and they can expect a summary copy at the next week, and they can expect a physical copy in 6 months. And you throw your hat over the fence and you're like, crap, what am I going to do now? Well, you're going to start writing. And you're not writing the book because you have the answer. You're writing the book because you're willing to stand in the gap for what's possible for all the other people who need the answer. Now it's no longer about you and your son. you're thinking at a much bigger level. So your conversations with people are different. Your way of thinking is different. The things that you complain about are different. And consequently, you are accessing a much deeper level of creativity and innovation in your brain that you couldn't access any other way, simply because you've chosen to take on a bigger problem. So I would leave you with that thought. The only reason we have the problems that we do is because we aren't up to bigger problems.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Jarrod, thank you so much for just bringing your light and your love and your energy to the world, and for being here with me today. I appreciate it so much. And I will for sure get the links to all of the things, your website and your book and all the things in this episode. So that way, all of those that feel called to continue the journey with you will be able to do that. So
thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone, and we'll look forward to the next episode of the Soul Centered Self.